Welcome to NightLore. Tonight's story isn't just another tale from the internet. It's something older, something that's been whispered, deleted, and reposted under countless names. They say it began as a harmless thread, a forgotten post on a dead forum. But everyone who's ever read it says they started to see her. So if you're listening to this right now, turn off the lights, put your phone face down, and whatever you do, don't check the time. This is the girl in the yellow raincoat. It started with nostalgia. Not fear, not curiosity, just that hollow ache you get when you miss a part of yourself you didn't know was gone. I hadn't read horror in years. Not the internet kind, at least. The kind that used to live on forums with broken layouts and pixelated avatars. Nosleep creepypasta. All those half-forgotten corners of the web where stories felt real. I was deep into them back in my late teens. There was something raw about those tales. They weren't polished or cinematic. They felt like someone whispering their worst memory into your ear. A friend confiding something they shouldn't. Back then, I'd read them in bed, earbuds in lights off. It wasn't about wanting to be scared. It was about feeling alive for a few minutes before sleep. The thrill of being unsettled without consequence. Last month, I moved back into my old apartment in Portland, the same place I used to stay up till 3 a.m. reading those stories. One night alone, bored and tired, I decided to chase that old feeling again. Just one more hit of the weird nostalgia that used to keep me up. I didn't know I was inviting something back with me. The first few nights were fun. I revisited all the classics, Ben Drowned, the Russian sleep experiment pen pal. I even found screenshots from old forums archived by people who refused to let them die. But after a while, I ran out of the good stuff. So I went back to Reddit, to r no sleep, hoping someone had carried the torch. They hadn't. Everything felt wrong. Too clean. Too engineered. You could tell half the posts were written for upvotes or churned out by bots. Smooth sentences, predictable arcs. Nothing that felt human. Even the comments had changed. Nobody argued about whether the story was real. Nobody shared their own strange experiences. It was just empty praise, algorithmic politeness. I remember sitting there scrolling endlessly, whispering to myself, where did it all go? And then, because I'm stubborn, I started digging deeper. Not the main sites. Those were sterilized. I went off-grid, old blogspot archives, abandoned forums, dead links, pages without moderation or modern formatting. Most of it was garbage, stories with broken grammar, all lowercase ending with, and then I woke up. But once in a while, one of them hit. Not because it was well written, but because it felt wrong in just the right way. Like it wasn't meant to entertain, but to unload. There was that strange sincerity. Again, the thing that made those early horror stories special. That's what kept me searching. Then one night, I found a forum that looked completely dead. No active users, no updates since 2022. And right there, buried between posts about haunted TV static and abandoned zoos, was a thread titled, "Don't read this if you like sleeping." The author was marked as deleted. No profile, no replies, no likes. Just the post. And I swear, before clicking it, I hesitated. There was something about the title, like it was meant specifically for me. But nostalgia is a powerful drug. So I clicked. The text loaded in plain black font. No spacing, no formatting. Just a dense wall of words. It told the story of a man who stumbled onto a strange piece of internet folklore, a girl in a yellow raincoat. She would appear after you read about her. At first, in the corner of your room, motionless, dripping wet, her hood always up her face, hidden. You'd never see her eyes, but you'd feel them. The story said she never spoke, never blinked, never moved while you were looking. Each night she'd come closer. The more you feared her, the wetter she became. And when she finally reached the foot of your bed at exactly 3:41 a.m., it was already too late. That was the last line. No gore, no twist. Just that. I remember leaning back and laughing a little. It felt so dated, like one of those 2000s chain emails, share this or die in 7 days. But I couldn't deny it. The story left a weird taste in my mouth. Something about it clung to me. Still, I closed the tab and shut the laptop. That was enough internet nostalgia for one night. I woke up to a sound. Not loud, just a soft knock. Once. I froze in bed, heart skipping. The apartment was silent, except for the faint hum of the ceiling vent. I got up, opened the door, looked down the hallway. Nothing. But the carpet was damp. I crouched, touched it. Wet. Cold. I told myself I must have spilled something or tracked in rain earlier. But I couldn't remember leaving the apartment that night. I went back to bed, brushed it off, and eventually fell asleep again. When I woke up, it was to the sound of my own heartbeat. No dream, no noise, just my chest hammering. I turned to check the clock. 3:41 a.m. A chill crawled up my spine. Coincidence, I thought. Had to be. Out of a million people, someone's bound to see that time after reading the story. But that didn't explain the wet carpet. Over the next few nights, things got worse. The wet spot kept returning sometimes, by the door, sometimes near the closet. Always cold, always fresh. Then one night, I woke up and she was there. Small, motionless, standing in the corner of my room. Her yellow raincoat hung heavy and soaked water pooling at her feet. The hood covered her face completely, but I could see her chin tucked unnaturally low, like her neck was bending wrong. I stared until my throat went dry. Then I blinked, and she was gone. In the morning, there was a dark patch on the carpet where she'd been standing. I told myself it was sleep paralysis. That's what everyone says when reality starts to rot around the edges. But the next night, she came back. Closer. I left the lights on. I set up my phone camera. Nothing ever showed. The footage was clean. But in the bathroom mirror behind my reflection, I saw her. Still. Waiting. After that, I covered every mirror in the apartment. I stopped sleeping properly. The more exhausted I got, the more she appeared. I had to understand what was happening, if this was a curse or a hallucination or something in between. So I started digging again. I searched every archive I could find. Usenet logs, defunct, blogs, screenshots from old web rings. And then I found it. A single post dated 2006. Title, Narrative Leech. Author, Lockjaw Mile. It said, the girl wasn't a ghost. She was a parasite, a thing that feeds on attention. Once you learn about her, she learns about you. She lives in the story, born from fear passed through words, reborn in every new mind that reads her. I read that line 3 times before it sank in. She was never haunting my apartment. She was haunting me. By then, I was barely functioning. The lights in my apartment stayed on 24/7. The bulbs burned out faster than I could replace them. My friends thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. Then one night, I got a message. Same forum, same dead site. The notification light blinked once on my monitor. User 137812. No profile, no posts, no history. Subject: I was the one who originally wrote that story. The message read, "She came to me after I wrote it. I thought I could contain her by putting her into words, but that only made her stronger." The moderator deleted my account, thinking I was the ghost. He was wrong. It wasn't me haunting him. It was the story. She is fiction incarnate. Write her story again and pass her on. That's the only way to survive. I stared at the screen for a long time. Write her story and pass her on. It sounded like murder. But what choice did I have? The decision ate at me for days. If I wrote it, someone else would suffer. If I didn't, I would die. Every night she came closer. By then, the floor was warped from the constant damp. The air smelled like rain and mildew. I couldn't remember when I last saw sunlight. At some point, I stopped fighting it. I sat at my desk and started typing. Every word felt like a confession. Every keystroke sounded like a heartbeat. I wrote everything, how I found the thread, how she looked, how she stood there, dripping silent. I wrote the message, the time, the rules, and when I finished, the cursor blinked over the word, post. My finger hovered over the mouse. Behind me, the air turned cold. I didn't need to look. I could feel her standing inches behind my chair, her breath damp and heavy on my neck. For a second, I thought I heard her whisper, not words, just water moving. I turned my head slightly and saw her reflection in the black glass of my monitor. A streak of yellow, her hands twitching at her sides, drops of water hitting the floor. The clock on the wall blinked. 3:41 DM, I whispered. "I'm sorry." And I clicked, post. You've heard her story now. That means she's heard you too. Maybe you'll forget this by morning. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll hear dripping water when the room is silent, or see something yellow move where there shouldn't be light. Don't worry. Most people make it through the first night. If you do come back to NightLore, there are more stories waiting, and every one of them is listening back. Sleep well, if you still can.